lastly, I'll discuss our Netherlands safety design principles, which Dan and Mike will be using in giving their alternative designs. So you're familiar with them. So we spent a month and we learned about 5 general terms that describe the Netherlands' approach towards sustainable safety. First, starting with functionality. In transportation planning, roadways function in 3 ways. They're arterial road, like a highway, a collector road, and a local road, which is residential roads. Homogeneity would be having like speeds, like mass, or just general size of facilities, and like volume. So more cars with more cars, more bikes with more bikes. Keeping same speed, same mass, same volume in their own separate facility. Recognizability. People having expectations of where everyone should be on the road. Should a car expect a bike to its right? Should a car expect a bike to its left? Where is everybody going to be? And what do they need to be aware of? Forgivingness is pretty straightforward. Reducing the harm in case an accident happens. Not putting people walking down the middle of the highway. You would never see that. State of awareness would be limiting the amount of tasks that the driver has at hand while driving. So if he needs to be aware of pedestrians and bicyclists, that's something he needs to be aware of. But if he doesn't need to be, then there's room for more facility to reduce the number of tasks. So a couple of things that we looked at. We looked at the survey that was done in 2005. We got kind of our base plan from that as far as the roadway layout, but we did take a look at the proposed 8-foot path to the south side of Chappaquidick Road along the entire roadway, and we did find many flaws in it. They didn't take into consideration wetlands and property lines, and also what the termination point is, or what happens once you reach Dyke Bridge Road. Also looked at the Dyke Bridge Road survey, which gave us a detailed view of where everything is on the roadway. And then also, last month, January 27th and 28th, we were able to come down here, take pictures, take measurements, get a feel for the road, take video of the road. We observed people on it. Believe it or not, there were actually people jogging out there in the middle of December, or January, and riding bikes out there in the middle of January. And also, we did look at a multitude of local resources, some geographic maps. We looked at chappybikepath.com, so probably read a lot of stuff that you people have written. So we've become familiar a lot with different news articles and different positions towards this issue. So what did we find? We found information about ferry operations from Peter Wells. We found out all the parking situation, what accommodations were existing, the Chappaquidick Dyke Bridge intersection, which you're most familiar with. It's the big curve right at the end, and then the parking situation at the Dyke Bridge. So, as you can see here, obviously Chappaquidick right about here. This is the existing bike network on Martha's Vineyard. Favors the east side, northeast of the island. What we see here, you can see that, is there is a missing link, I feel, on Chappaquidick Island, connecting it to the rest of the island. Largely due to it's not connected by land, it's connected by a ferry, but people are coming over here, over Chappaquidick here now, and they are visiting these different destinations, and it is a place that people are going already. Also looked at what existing paths are used on Martha's Vineyard. This is on West Tisbury Road in Edgartown. It's a off-road, 8-foot wide, multi-use path on a collector road. About a 5-foot buffer separation with trees and vegetation in between, trying to hide into the landscape. So, constraints we ran into in developing our different options. First off, lane widths, the amount of pavement that was out there. It's 2 10-foot lanes. Generally, the smallest amount of lanes we would see for a roadway that functions this way is maybe 9 feet. So with a 1-foot buffer on each side, there isn't much for anything but cars. The existing right-of-way, 50 feet right now. So that gives into play 30 extra feet in addition to the pavement that is available for the use for the benefit of the public, as the town sees. Granted, it's natural resources, as I talked earlier. There's vegetation, there's wetlands, Caleb's Pond, all that. Also observed traffic speeds. It says 20 to 25 miles an hour. We didn't really typically find that out there. It was usually 25 plus. I know when we were driving down there, we found ourselves going over 25 miles an hour without knowing it. And most other cars, we could probably estimate were going over the posted speed limit. Typically, a bike would probably go about 10 plus mile an hour. So that brings us back to the homogeneity of the road as far as like speeds traveling in the same passage. And also pedestrians, walker about 4 miles an hour, and a jogger probably about 10 miles an hour. So there's a lot of information here in this chart, but I'd like to focus on 3 different aspects here. This chart, what it describes is what the position of a bicyclist was in relation to the stream of traffic in an accident. So this was a study done in 1996. The data was taken, it was a paper published a couple years ago. And the blue bar here is for rural locations, which Chappaquidick would be probably considered a rural location. And over 70%, about 74% of accidents that occur with bicyclists, the position of the bicyclist is in the travel lane, as opposed to with a paved shoulder or dedicated bike lane, about 10%, and with an off-road multi-use path, only about 1% of bicyclist accidents occur in an off-road multi-use facility. This chart here represents pedestrian fatality probability as related to the speed of traffic. Pretty straightforward, but here is 20 miles an hour, about 30 miles an hour. So once cars start approaching more than 30 miles an hour, the probability of a fatality in a bicycle and automobile accident, probability almost doubles that the person will actually die. And then obviously it grows increasingly exponentially as it goes on. So I'd like to pass off to Dan to discuss our different considered options for our multimodal facilities.
As you can see, our considered options, we came up with 4. The do-nothing approach, which I know many of you favor. The sharrows, which are painted, we'll see later on. I'll get back to that. Separated bike paths, separated bike lanes, in addition to the roadway, what's out there existing, adding excess pavement to it so that bikers have additional room to use. And also an off-road mixed-use path, which is, as you've seen before, similar to West Tisbury Road, off-road, approximately 8 feet wide for the bikers, joggers, and pedestrians to use. The do-nothing, obviously it's existing. You have a 50-foot right-of-way, 10-foot travel lanes, approximately. And typically, as Adam said, cars travel 25 plus. I know I was standing out there taking pictures, and I had a construction vehicle approach me maybe 40, 45 miles an hour. So that's, not unheard of. Here, obviously, bicyclists, pedestrians, joggers all share the lane. Here's our existing conditions. The sharrows, using these existing conditions, it's adding these painted markings on the roadway. Provides a visual barrier for the driver looking at the bicyclist. Just an added warning. I know from my perspective, this really isn't applicable here. It's a 10-foot travel lane, so cars tend to take up most of them, and typically bicyclists. So I think